All right. Good morning. Today, we're going to be talking about my search for a viable model for online communities of practice in the settlement sector. All right. I just want to do a quick review of what we're going to talk about today. It's a review of several of the communities of practice that OCASI has created over the years and review some of the lessons learned. I also want to talk about why I think traditional COPs in the settlement sector haven't been working. And finally, I want to talk about a non-traditional community of practice that is working and why this model should be a template for any future sector COPs. All right. But first, a bit more about me. As mentioned, I'm the manager of IT and new media at OCASI. OCASI being the Ontario Council of Agencies Serving Immigrants here in Ontario. We act as the collective voice for the immigrant and refugee serving sector in Ontario. I started at OCASI in 1999, and I came on board as a web coordinator, or the techie, for the recently launched Extranet, the first of many sector communities of practice. Before I begin, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page when I talk about traditional COPs, or communities of practice. A great definition comes from the researcher Etienne Wenger. Groups of people who share a concern or a passion for something they do and learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. And in my experience with settlement sector COPs, we rely on or assume that the passion of the settlement worker will get them online and sharing their knowledge and expertise by participating in online groups and discussions, collaborating and coordinating on activities to improve client service, and contributing content like best practices, websites they like, local events, research papers, things like that. And traditionally, when measuring success measuring success or impact of the COP, what happened, Michael? Indicators like posts and replies, number of resources shared, daily logins, and these are the numbers you would send in your monthly reports. And with this in mind, I will now quickly go through several of OCASI's attempts at the traditional COP, starting with the Extranet. All right. The Extranet started in 1998, the first online COP in the settlement sector. When the Extranet launched, it was limited to just CIC-funded staff. So that meant about an audience of about 1,000 people. And it launched long before Facebook and Twitter and before the culture of sharing that we see online today. But our goal with the Extranet was to leverage all this new technology and get the sector online and collaborating. The collaboration tools we launched with ranged from very basic to very ambitious. We had standard tools like discussion forums and content submission forums. We also had unique, at the time we thought, features like the Project Corner, where you could upload your project information and ask for feedback, solicit partners. We even had an experts panel where you could volunteer to be a subject matter expert and be a mentor and guide other users. And so with all these great features in place, we went out and trained hundreds of workers. We trained them at conferences just like this. We trained them at their desks. And after all that preparation, the only thing missing was user activity, of course. Actually, if we were measuring success by the number of forgotten password phone calls that we received, then the Extranet would have been a runaway hit. Collaboration and content sharing from the sector was minimal, to say the least. And of course, even with us calling and begging for people to share. Eventually, we had to admit defeat and started looking for reasons why it wasn't working out. The faults with our approach seem obvious now. For one, we could have come up with a less technical name than the Extranet. In fact, too technical is a good way to summarize the entire Extranet project. We built a website based on a model of spontaneous web-based interactions with a sector that was just then starting to use computers for basic online tasks. It was obvious many users were not comfortable working, let alone collaborating online. Next, we offered so many options for engagement that it was easy to be overwhelmed. And in the end, we had many more people fax us content than we ever had use the online submission forms. We didn't have the staff necessary to train and promote as needed. This is a constant in all the COPs that we've seen or that I've seen and been a part of. I was a part of 2 when I started working on the Extranet, and that was as big as the team ever got. Another big issue, and this was after we started really looking into what happened at the end of the Extranet. A lot of workers told us that they didn't have the time to work on to work in a community of practice. And this goes back to what the other speakers were talking about, this idea of technology as being something extra. But we also heard a lot that they wouldn't get the permissions from the managers, or that they were expected to go on the extranet in their off time. This wasn't every agency, of course. We did have some champions, but we heard it enough to believe that some agencies didn't see enough value in a community of practice to promote its use internally. The site lasted 4 long years before we pulled the plug, but we took away some great lessons, and we kept the parts of the site that worked, and we started a new site for the settlement sector. We called it Settlement at Work. The main reason we wanted to keep going, of course, is that even though we didn't get many submissions from this sector, we had built quite a substantial library of resources, research papers, things like that, that we wanted the sector to access. But we were going to do a completely different model. Of course, the biggest change was that we went to a website that didn't require approval to join. There was no password. And also, we removed all the ambitious collaboration tools like project sharing and the subject matter expert tools. But you know, we couldn't leave well enough alone. We didn't give up on the idea of a community practice completely, though. We figured we might have better luck using a simple discussion tool, like a discussion forum, which we consider to be sort of one of the most basic collaboration platforms. We promoted it as best we could. We put it on the front page of the site, and we filled it with planted posts, and we had people ready to reply. People knew the discussion forum was there, the site was popular, they signed up, but that was as far as we actually got. 2 years later, we had 600 signups, which, you know, in that sector maybe was okay, but only 81 posts. Most of them were from Marco, and we literally had 15 different authors. I went back into the Wayback Machine to go look, and it was just a sad, sad thing. All right. So yes, Backface Reality. The number of posts was obviously very small, even with our plants trying to generate conversations. The biggest thing in any community of practice, of course, is having people respond when somebody is brave enough to post. And we had that, but we just couldn't keep any of the conversations going. So yes, even with a common and simple COP technology, we weren't able to get the sector online and talking. All right, so back to the mirror, self-reflection. We had to look at, to us we said that the traditional COP model was not going to work in this sector. It was pretty obvious that sharing expertise and answering each other's questions isn't going to spontaneously happen online in this sector, especially not in an unstructured and public online forum. And even though users say they see the value in collaborating, we still haven't found, at this point anyway, the right incentive to get them online. So after another 2 sad years, we removed the discussion area and tried on other projects. So I called this Between Sector COP Years, and it was a very happy time. So we worked on some other projects, and the biggest one has been mentioned a little bit already. It was the settlement.org discussion forum, part of the large settlement.org site. This is a discussion forum that's focused just on settlement, not immigration, not how to apply, none of that stuff. That's where you'll get your huge numbers, but it's impossible to maintain. But again, so way back in 2003, we built the online platform where newcomers could ask questions about settlement. And the answers came from Ocasi staff, and after a while, from other newcomers. We moderate it, we vet every answer, and it's been a great success. It started slowly, but there are now over 30,000 members and 100 posts a month. And the thing is, we use the exact same technology that we used on the At Work site, but the buy-in from the newcomer community has been much different, or very different. The value the users get from the discussions is enough for them to overcome technical, language, and social barriers that might be in the way. While I was quite happy not managing a sector COP, it still felt like something we should be working towards. Maybe the timing and the models had not been right. It was inevitable. We would try again. So in 2012, I had a new staff person who really, really wanted to take another try at creating a sector COP. I told them about our past attempts, but they would not be deterred. They had a plan, and they were very motivated. So I gave them the go-ahead to try again, and hoping that the third time was a charm, we created the Settlement at Work Wiki. Our goals were mostly the same: get the sector collaborating and sharing information. While my expectations were definitely lowered, I was interested to see if the sector had progressed any in collaborating or connecting online. And I was also excited to try a new collaboration platform. We were going to use the Wikimedia software that runs Wikipedia. The software allows users to edit existing content and add new pages very easily. So we seeded the wiki by migrating all of our resources, our archived resources from the at-work site. We launched, and we trained a lot, and we promoted. And it actually worked a little. There was some excitement at the beginning, as there often is for new COP projects. We had some great champions. Staff from the LIPS were a great example of how the wiki could be used. They contributed amazing content. We even had CIC, the federal government ministry, choose to host an orphan project here on the wiki. Others used it to plan events, store content that might not have a home anywhere else. We also had several groups create homepages just for a project. It was just a great place to do whatever you want with. But, sadly, the excitement faded. We haven't had anyone submit content in over a year. I'm not surprised, of course. But for instance, we knew the technology was going to be a problem. Wikis are flexible, but they rely a lot on the users being dedicated enough to the content to try to make the most out of the wiki technology. And that did not happen here. Staffing, again, is an issue. The wiki, like all of our sector COPs, have been 2 minutes. Oh, my gosh. And I'm talking fast, probably. And the secondary part of a bigger project. Sorry, the wiki was a secondary part of a bigger project. All right. I can get rid of all of my slowdowns now. All right. Okay. The wiki will live on, though. We're not going to shut it down because even during preparation for this presentation, when I was looking for some old documents, research, or CFPs, they're not there anymore. There's a real people think things live forever on the internet, and they don't. Some of this, so we're going to treat the wiki as an online archive. All right? But it won't be a hub of real-time collaboration and info sharing. All right. So that was a quick overview, apparently not quick enough, of some of the hits and many misses of our sector COPs. Next, I want to talk about why I think sector COPs, OCASI COPs, and many other sector COPs are not generating sustainable activity. And in essence, in my opinion, traditional COPs based on the model of spontaneous and unstructured user engagement will likely never work in this sector. I cannot be done in 1 minute. And here are a few reasons why. I've worked too hard finding all these icons to be done in this. All right, so here are the main reasons why I think traditional COPs, where it's the idea of spontaneous user engagement, is not working in this sector. Settlement is very local. The most useful settlement help is based around knowledge of local resources and referrals, and that is more likely to come from somebody sitting at the desk beside you than somebody in Halifax, unless you're in Halifax, and that's fine. All right. Settlement is immediate. When a worker has an issue, it is usually with the client sitting right with them. To expect them to go online and wait for an answer is unrealistic. A big thing for me is settlement is about conversations, not about things that are easily shared and posted. Frontline settlement workers aren't creating lesson plans and activities on a daily basis. All right. Of course, there are many other reasons why COPs don't work in this sector and in others, but these three are very important when thinking about the next settlement COP. All right. So what will get settlement workers participating? What will get them online? All right. As I've said before, COPs are not providing enough value or incentive to push settlement workers to move past their technical and social barriers to collaborating and sharing information online. But what do settlement workers value? We know that at OCASI, we know they value professional development. OCASI has been providing an online learning platform for settlement workers since 2005. It was another project started by Marco and I, actually. He worked on the content, I worked on the tech. Our first course was a partnership with Access Alliance called Health as a Settlement Issue. Now we have a mix of self-directed and, when funding permits, facilitated courses on a number of settlement topics. It's called Learn at Work, and it's been our most successful sector COP by any measure. All right. Since 2008, we've had nearly 6,000 students register with enrollments from across Canada. Students have received 1,500 certificates of completion, which means that they are sticking with courses even if it takes weeks and months. And we also have unheard of levels of discussion happening in facilitated courses. We had 3,800 posts last year alone, and these discussions are on topics like accessibility, sexual violence, LGBT issues. And within these discussions, they are sharing resources and experiences and expertise. It's the kind of activity we've been trying to generate in our traditional COPs for years. So why are people engaging here with the COP and not others? They value the PD opportunities. They want to get that certificate of completion, and they're willing to work through the technical or social barriers to get them. All right? The value of the PD is worth more than any hang-ups they may have about posting their thoughts online. All right. Looking forward, There is a plan to create a national settlement COP. I still think it's a worthy goal to try to get settlement workers connecting and learning from each other. It builds cohesion in the sector and enables workers to find and use resources they might not otherwise know about. But I will go out on a limb and say that if the next COP is modeled like the dozens of others that have come and failed before it, it will meet a similar fate. In my opinion, the COP has to be built around formal professional development. We have seen that the only time the sector is willing to go out of their comfort zones, at least I have seen, and collaborate online is when the value for doing so is worth breaking through their many barriers our frontline workers have about networking and posting online. In essence, I am saying, for the next COP, instead of spending money on finding best practice documents, spend it on courses that teach best practices. It won't be cheap and it won't be easy, but it'll be valued and it'll be used. Thank you. All right.